Well, good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all again. And today, our reading from the Gita is from chapter 10. And as we all know, we are getting close to Christmas. The whole month of December, really, at least for us who come from the West and are somewhat spiritual at least, we think of Christ. Many other people think of gifts, but we try to think of Christ immediately when December comes because we know Christmas is coming. And, in these satsangs, I usually like to take a theme that maybe something that reminds me of Christ, of course, is from the Gita. And one of the things that when I think of Christ, I think about is grace. Yes, there is love, there is many things, but one of them is grace. And always amazes me how all these great masters, Krishna, Buddha, Christ, all these great masters that lived so long ago, of course, Ananda as well, but he lived very recently. How when people attune themselves to them, call for them sincerely from their heart, their presence can still be felt, maybe even more than when they were in the body. Because if our hearts are more pure, we will feel them more than those who were with them. And for me, that is one of the definitions of grace, of the grace that they bring, that no matter they are beyond time and space, that all of us have the opportunity to draw them to us. And in the end, that grace through them is what makes sense of us. So the reading I picked from the Gita today, from chapter 10, is 10:10. To those who are attached only to me and who worship me with love, I impart that discernment of wisdom by which they attain me completely. And the next verse. Out of pure compassion, that is, out of the selfless gift of love, with no admixture of compulsion, I, the Divine One who dwells in all, set alight in their hearts the blazing lamp of wisdom, which banishes their darkness of ignorance. Now, I wanted to start with a couple of stories from the life of Christ that perhaps some of you are not very acquainted with. This first one, probably you all heard, but the second one is a little less common told. But they're both in this subject of grace and how we can attract that grace, because we cannot just wait passively for it to come. Sometimes it does come when we least expect it, but this is the story. There was a woman who she was suffering from hemorrhage for many, many years, 12 years, I think they said. And as Jesus was passing, there was a big crowd surrounding him, trying to touch him, and his disciples were all around him. And this lady, this person went, and she managed to touch, they say, the cape of Christ, or the robe of Christ. And immediately she was healed. And, as Christ was walking all the time, he stops and he says, somebody touch me. And everybody was silent, and somebody touched me. And the disciples finally said, well, Lord, there are so many people, of course people are touching you. There are so many that want to be with you. And I said, no, but I felt power being drawn out of me. In that way, somebody touched me. And finally, the lady realized that he was referring to her. And she came kind of, wanting to apologize. But Christ said, my daughter, don't be concerned. It is your faith that have healed you. Go home in peace. That through her faith, just by touching the robe of the great saint, she was able to heal himself completely of something that, medicine at that time was not great, but that nobody else could heal her at the moment. She had that faith, that experience, that she knew that one was able to channel to her the healing power needed. And now there is another story that for me is very touching. And this is one, I believe, it happened later, but it was a centurion of the Roman army. Centurion, it was a rank of the Roman military. And as you know, Israel was conquered by the Romans. They were occupied by the Romans, so people did not like the Romans very much. So even helping them was considered something very bad, an act of treason in a way. But this centurion, this military man, came to Jesus once, and of course, being a great master, he did not mind who was in front of him. If anybody was open to him, if anybody was open to receive, he will give, like any great master would. They don't care about all these petty differences that we make. And this centurion told him, basically, he told him that he has a helper. A helper whom he considers as close to as a son. He likes that helper very much, very dear to him, but he was very ill. So Jesus immediately said, okay, so you want me to go? Let's go to your house, I'll heal your helper. I'm paraphrasing, of course. You know, the language of the Bible, how hard it is to quote word by word. But the centurion says something very, very interesting. He says, no, please don't come. You don't need to come. He said, I'm a man of the army. I serve some people, and some people are under my service. If I tell a soldier, go there, he will go there. I know he will go there. If I tell him, come, he will come. If I tell my servant, do this, I know he will do it. And I know that if only you say it, it will happen. Meaning that he knew that Christ also had command over certain powers, over certain laws that would make his servant be well, whether he saw him, he touched him or not. And of course, Christ was very pleased by his openness, by his devotion. And he even said, I have not seen such openness of heart, even in Israel, you know, among the people whom he was supposed to be the Savior. Or hardly have I seen such openness, such devotion. I said, go to your home, and as you believed it, your servant will be healed. And of course, he was healed. How again, a man who was open, he didn't even need to touch, to do anything, just by his faith, by his knowing that the power that flew through Christ was able to flow somewhere else. It got done. And it's interesting because one draw the power to heal herself, another one to heal somebody else. And so it is that in the path, we start to realize more and more that really attuning ourselves with this grace, or as Swami will say, one of his last books that he published, it was called Cooperating with Grace. He didn't publish, he wrote it. Cooperating with Grace. That cooperation with grace is really what the path is all about. And it is what we all should aspire with our every action. Now, something interesting you could say happened to me recently. Not so long ago, because of certain circumstances, I was in a long bus trip and I felt sick. Sagar knows very well that sometimes in these long trips I fall sick. My stomach gives me some problems. And, you know, I was in a 6-hour drive in the bus and I was feeling sick all the time. And the buses, you know, they move. Somehow I always get the seat right on the rear wheel. You know, it's more bumpy and more bumpy. And it's not that I enjoy being sick, but I always enjoy it. It's not that I want to be sick, but I always enjoy it but I don't enjoy telling it to people, because then people will always be asking, how are you today? And they start. It is nice. It is in a matter of well-wishing that people do that, but I don't like to be remembered that I'm sick, or that I don't want to even think that I'm sick. And it is actually, and I'm diverting a little bit because I find it very amusing in India and very sweet and very good that especially elderly people, if you tell them they're sick, they say, I know what you need to do. Go to this papaya tree, get the darkest leaf, and then boil it with, some ginger. But only if the ginger was picked on a Thursday or on a Tuesday. Then it will heal you. And they'll come with all these homemade recipes of how to heal. I'm sorry, doctors, but I trust those things more than the conventional medicines. The only thing is that they're usually hard to make, so it's too complicated. I just tough it out. But back to the point, it happens to me, and I think it happens to most people, but when you are sick, you have no desires. Maybe your only desire may be to get well, but subconsciously, if you look at it, food, entertainment, this, that, nothing seems pleasing to you. You don't want to do any of those things. All your energy kind of withdraws from that, and yes, it's being used to heal the body. But if you see, whenever you are feeling not just a little headache or just a little thing, but whenever you are feeling quite sick that you need to be in bed or you can barely move, all your desires are temporarily gone. And then, why I enjoy it so much is because, yes, you are suffering there, the bus is moving, you want to go to the toilet, whatever. But the moment you say, Master, what's going on here? God, not why are you doing this to me, but whenever it becomes much easier, for me at least, to bring God into the picture in a more full way, in a way that I can talk to him and feel his presence with me, and the sickness becomes a joy, really. At least for all those moments that I'm able to do that. And somehow I find it that when I'm sick, it is easier. And unfortunately, also, we learn so much of our things through that suffering. But now, I don't want to talk about suffering now. I know last satsang, Dharna was talking about war and catastrophes and all that, and I don't want you people to believe that that's all the things we think about, But when I think of that, yes, suffering, pain, these are very good ways. They can be good ways for us to invite God to our lives, if only through despair, I don't know. But always when that comes, it reminds me of a line that Swami Kriyananda wrote in his Festival of Light. He said, and I paraphrase a little bit again, as though in the past, man's redemption came through pain and suffering, now the payment has been exchanged by calm acceptance and joy. That suffering, all these things are from the past. That is not the way for us to attract grace. That's not the way for us to advance spiritually, although it has its benefit. We know in the West, especially Catholic saints, they all went through a lot of suffering in order to become holy. And then also something that comes to my mind is that saying, I don't know who said it, but pain is unavoidable. Suffering is a choice. That when we are able to, through our meditation, through our service, through our daily activities, through whatever we do, remember, everything, the goal is to attract that grace. When we are able to attract that grace to us, we immediately live in joy. We immediately live in peace. And no matter what comes to us, it will not affect us. Sometimes it happens to me, and I'm sure it happens to all of you, that either after a meditation or even just after you wake up, all of a sudden you feel like, today is a good day. And today you feel a certain flow of grace, you could call it again, that is always with you. And through all that whole day, no matter what happens, everything is fine. No matter if sickness, if some bad luck happens to you, you know that it will be all right, and it is always all right, because it's always our perception of things. So I say this especially because now we are going to have this 8-hour meditation that is going to happen next Sunday. And remember, through that meditation, that we have the power, we have the tools to attune ourselves to Christ, to attune ourselves to any of these great masters. And when we draw on that grace, then we're able to live unshaken amidst the crash of breaking wars. That calmness, acceptance, and joy, it is ours to take if we're able to draw that grace. Whenever anything comes to you, remember, think of the masters, call to them, and you will be able to go smoothly through anything. Now, I wanted to read what Swamiji says about this slogan. Very interesting. It is important for the spiritual aspirant to realize that he doesn't earn anything by seeking God. Divine grace is still a gift of compassion and may be withheld from those who follow the law exactly, but who perhaps, out of dryness of heart, fail to win his love. God may, on the other hand, reward with the highest wisdom those who in their surrender of perfect devotion only love Him. Through the intervention of the Sadguru alone do such blessings come. And just a concluding thing, that those words, that through the blessings of the Sadguru alone, those blessings can come. That the great masters are the one, when we attune ourselves to them, that channel those things to us. So again, I encourage you all, especially during this time, try to attune yourself to Christ, to His consciousness, to what He brought. Maybe read a little bit of the stories of the Bible, if the other stuff is a little too heavy. And you will see that you can feel Him as if He was right here, that Yogananda always felt Him, that many people have felt Him so close and dear. And of course, it is meditation, prayer, service, all these things are for us to attract grace. But something very interesting that Swami Kriyananda said in the movie Finding Happiness, he said, when people live in kindness and love of others, they live in grace even though they may not know it. That through all our actions, we can attune ourselves to that flow of grace. That whenever we are mean to somebody, we are letting Satan take hold of us. Whenever we deny help to somebody who really may be helped by our actions, we are letting Satan take hold of him. Whenever we smile to somebody, whenever we share joy in whatever way, we are being channels of that grace. So it is not just a matter of meditating, it is just a matter of all our actions should show that highest in us, that highest in everybody else. Try always more and more through everything that we do to attune ourselves to grace and to share that with everyone. Om.